Retro.
Hi, this is Emily Swallow, the Armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Hello there, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it is Friday. Woohoo! So that means it's time to look at some Star Wars news. But before we dive into the latest, Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media handle is?
Well, we're always on the move at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Well, Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X, at Podcast Stardust.
I don't remember ever owning a Twitter handle. Okay. We don't use it. All right. Well, the dish is aligned. The signal's boosted. The maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So if you're wondering what all of the Obi-Wan Kenobi references are about, that's because Ewan McGregor just made an appearance at, I was going to say San Diego Comic-Con, but it's not. It's LA Comic-Con. And he was doing a panel, and naturally he was asked about the potential for a season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he says that, yes, there is potential for that, Disney and Lucasfilm have been exploring ideas for a potential second season. And he, to get some direct quotes about this, he said, obviously between the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and when Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi, there's got to be another few stories in there. And when asked about what he would like to do, he said, there's a couple of things. I'd quite like to wear that armor. I was speaking to someone earlier from the Clone Wars. I think that's something I would enjoy. Mm-hmm. And then asked about what he'd be willing to do to make that happen. He said that, yeah, he would have to wear the dots on his face to make him appear younger using CGI. And his response about that was, I don't care. I'll do it. And that way, Hayden and I can really get back together again. So this made my fanboy heart flutter a bit with the prospect of this. And I think, knowing you as well as I do from the nearly 5 years we're doing this podcast, plus Starship Savers and Scoundrels, that you had to be digging that as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Can you hear the smile on my face? I mean, it's definitely from ear to ear. And Ewan is just such a joy always to watch and listen to in panels because he really does have such an investment in the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi and in Star Wars in general. And so I didn't get to watch the whole panel, but I did get to see pretty much the meat of it and exactly what you were just talking about. And it was funny when he said, oh yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. And then somebody said something about a boo. And he goes, did I hear a guy boo back there? Did he really boo just now? That's okay. You don't have to like it or something to that nature. But oh my gosh, I mean, a Ewan Hayden reunion in Clone Wars, real live action, would be absolutely amazing because we have Amanda Stenberg, mm-hmm. as our little Ahsoka. So that would be Ariana Greenblatt. Yeah, sorry, mm-hmm. as our little Ahsoka. So that would be fantastic. But I agree. I mean, there's so much that could be explored still in a second season.
It blew my mind in Ahsoka when Hayden showed up in the Clone Wars armor in that flashback scene. And it tickles me that Ewan now wants to do that. And so I think that's fantastic. And then after Ahsoka, I can't remember exactly when, there was rumors, that Greenblatt and Hayden were going to potentially do a live action Clone Wars show. Mm-hmm. And we got all excited about that. But you're right. I mean, I was thinking the same thing. It wouldn't just have to be Obi-Wan and Anakin. You could get Ahsoka in there as well. And there'd be potential for some absolutely incredible stories. You'll get Tamora Morrison back to play Rex and all the clones. That would be fantastic. I'm just trying to figure out, that era is just so saturated. I mean, with, from the Clone Wars itself, and then a few books and comics and stuff, that, what kind of story they could do. And there's plenty of room, don't get me wrong. But if it's not that, what kind of other story would you like to see for Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Well, I mean, there's still so many years between when we leave him at the end of season 1 and where we end up seeing him as, Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan in A New Hope.
Mhm.
And Ewan was even saying, that as he was doing some of the acting that he was thinking about having Alec in the room and, would Alec approve of these things? And not that he wanted to be him, but that he wanted to be able to, pay the correct homage to that character. So I'm kind of thinking that we've kind of closed the book on his relationship with Leia, that I think it's time to explore what happens with Luke during this time
Mhm.
and how that relationship plays out. And we of course know what happens with he and Owen and how much Owen does not want him around, and we get that of course even up to A New Hope. And so I think it would be interesting to see that, and maybe Obi-Wan really was a little bit more active in the rebellion than we ever thought before, because obviously if Bail is still thinking of him as the contact to get a hold of for Leia in A New Hope, that there, it almost begs to make us wonder, was he really just a hermit that whole time?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, I've got mixed thoughts on this. I I like the idea of seeing a bit more interaction between Obi-Wan and Luke, but I just don't wanna rehash that same type of story where they go on this big adventure, because it doesn't seem like, while Leia knew that Obi-Wan had force powers because he got revealed in Obi-Wan Kenobi, this whole idea of the force and what a Jedi is completely foreign to Luke when he runs into Obi-Wan in A New Hope.
Right.
So that kind of puts a damper on some of the adventure that they could have in that regard. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be some interaction, or perhaps the Empire encroaches on Tatooine again, or a bounty hunter looking for someone else gets close and overhears something and starts to put two and two together that possibly puts Luke in danger. And so it's not like Luke is on the run with Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan's doing stuff to keep them from getting there. That's one angle on that story.
Mhm.
And the other thing is just that, again, the Jedi are believed to be extinct. Obi-Wan Kenobi's been in hiding, and they constructed the Kenobi story that the Empire wasn't able to put two and two together to figure out, especially once the third sister wandered off, that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine. So you kind of have to be mindful of that, that we're not straining credulity. That you know, there's this guy, he wanders around with a blue lightsaber on Tatooine. You think he's a Jedi? Nah, I mean, come on. So whatever they do, I could think of plenty of Tatooine stories that would be great, but then you just kind of run up against this. He's supposed to be in hiding. He can't just keep bringing out the lightsaber there and expect it never to get back to the Imperial Security Bureau, the ISB, and the like. So,
Right.
anyways, I can see why this, as much as you and I would like to have an Obi-Wan Kenobi series, it's something that they kind of have to take very seriously
Mhm.
in their planning and plotting for it.
Mhm. No, I totally agree with everything that you said. And I guess what I was thinking of when I said with Luke is more of a parallel story
Mhm.
and kind of akin to what you were talking about, where Obi-Wan's doing something on his side of things, but then, we get to see things from Luke's point of view as well.
Yeah.
So that it's not necessarily that they have adventures together per se, because
Mhm.
I do think, as you said too, we need to preserve what A New Hope already established, and
Mhm.
we definitely don't want to ruin that. So there is that fine line that's there. But then again, I mean, again, like you said, he's supposed to be in hiding, but there's also the novel by John Jackson Miller that is not considered canon anymore, but something along the lines of a story like that, that
Yeah.
explores, more of his life just in general. And we got a little bit of that, as we got it reintroduced to him in the first series, but he was more in that depressed mode and working in that, whaling butcher
Mhm.
shop or whatever it was. But we did get to see the everyday Obi-Wan, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, like, as much as I like that book by John Jackson Miller, yeah, it was Tuscans were so central to that. Well, again, it's a lot of that Tuscan ground was covered in the Book of Boba Fett.
Hmm.
And so I'm not trying to foreclose ideas. It's just that I want to see something new when it
Mhm.
comes down to it.
Mhm.
But that again, I'm trust me, I like the Tuscans and all. So again, having scenes with there's no reason you couldn't have an episode that had the Tuscans feature in it. It's just it seems like there are so many corners they could back themselves easily into with all of this. I don't know. The more I'll think about it, the more I kind of like the idea of the not that I didn't like it before, but I like the idea of doing a Clone Wars episode or show with this, or even if they handled it like they did in Obi-Wan Kenobi with the flashbacks where Obi-Wan and Anakin were sparring at the Jedi Temple. I,
Yeah,
or they did in Ahsoka with a young Ahsoka and Anakin. You don't have to go to the world between worlds, and I think that's something that has to be. You have to tread that ground carefully. There, you don't want to overuse that because it's ripe for abuse if you do. But give us those flashback scenes, two parallel stories, something that maybe happened in the Clone Wars, which is now coming up again in the present day. And so we kind of, that could be your hook for going back and forth in time throughout a season.
right, right. No, that'd be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anytime we can get Hayden and Ewan back together is just a dream. So yeah,
Indeed.
bring it on, please.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, pay attention to it. Again, this is nothing official. This was just Hayden talking about it. But, when they were getting close to announcing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, we started getting these type of teases all over the
Hmm.
place. So there's smoke, whether there's fire, we'll find out. But all
Hmm.
right. Well, the other little bit of semi-television news we have is that there is a fun little Lego Star Wars. Starwing. There is a fun little Lego Star Wars Halloween short available on YouTube. And I mean, it is short. It's a minute and a half. But
Hmm.
um, if you don't want to have it spoiled because it is fun, then go ahead and skip 3 or 4 minutes at the very least and come back to this later to hear our discussion about it. But the long and the short of it, Jay, is that we've got a Halloween party being hosted by Jabba the Hutt on his sail barge, and Darth Vader decides to crash it. Or does he? He shows up and he starts kind of bossing people around, but then it becomes apparent that this probably isn't Darth Vader because he's throwing things at people and shoving people and not using the Force. And when he gets it kind of gets outed, he starts to run out the hall, only to run into the real Darth Vader, and it's revealed that this is Bib Fortuna posing as Darth Vader all along. And then the whole episode ends with him dangling off the side of the plank on a skiff above the Sarlacc. So again, clearly not canon. It's a fun little
Right.
story. I mean, we got Boba Fett showing up and shooting holes in pumpkins to make jack-o'-lanterns, and but I don't know. I wasn't expecting this, and it was just kind of a neat little Halloween drop for the Halloween season.
Yes, it was a fun little surprise for sure, and definitely a fun way to spend, just under 2 minutes. But yeah, and was that spotchka that I saw in that bottle that was we were just talking about that in our Ask Me Anything Star
Uh,
Wars.
you know, I wondered what was in the bottle, and okay, that'd be bold if it was
Right?
Spotchka because
Especially because of Lego.
yeah, I mean it's Lego, and this is aimed at
Kids.
kids, not kids of
Right.
all ages on that one.
Well, my head headcanon says it's Spotchka because,
Could be, might as
but
well.
but no, it was a lot of fun, and you're right, it was a little awkward at first because you have this Darth Vader just kind of bumbling around, and then I thought, "Okay, that's sort of the Lego joke is that
Hmm.
Darth Vader is kind of the butt of some jokes and that type of thing," but it was a little over the top, and then as soon as that helmet came off, I was like, "Oh, of course it's Bib Fortuna,"
Yeah,
because who else would be so bold?
right.
For
There's
maybe
like
Will Huff Tarkin.
no dialogue in this thing.
No.
I mean, there's a Jawa that Utini, that type of thing, but other than that,
Mhm.
there's no real dialogue in this thing. But it didn't need it. It would have worked as a silent film just as well as it did with sound effects there.
For
But it was
sure.
fun. I'm glad they put that out.
Yeah.
I like those type of things.
Yeah, again, just a nice little surprise.
Hmm.
And I
All
still
right.
like that you said Star Wars Ween or Starween because that
Yeah.
sounds even better. It's Halloween, Star Wars. Sounds good.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, we're getting closer to Star Wars Celebration. It's still not till the middle of April, April 18th to the 20th in Japan. But we have had the reveal of some of the badge art for this. And It's been revealed over at StarWars.com. You can find better images of it on various social media. I think the Star Wars Instagram account has the best on this. But Jay, they've gone with and I don't know exactly how to pronounce this, so I'm going to do my best, and y'all can tell me I'm wrong later. But it's a ukiyo-e style, and this is one that should be familiar to most people. It was kind of I don't want to say ancient, but an older Japanese style that thrived from the 17th to the 19th centuries in Japan. We've all seen it. It's typically looks like it's on a scroll. You've got a samurai type character with the moon, flowers, and such on there, and then usually some Japanese script and the like. This was created by Takumi, and there's a mashup of various Star Wars characters and then the likes of ninjas and samurai and stuff. What'd you think about this?
Oh, these are so cool. As soon as I saw these pop up on Instagram, I was instantly drawn to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I was reading the article on StarWars.com, it mentioned that these were references to Jidai Geki, the period dramas in Akira Kurosawa. So that makes
Mm-hmm.
complete sense. And the fact that it's obviously, Star Wars Celebration Japan, but so incredibly cool. I am mesmerized by these, and not just the idea of the interpretation of the characters themselves, but also, as you pointed out, just the naturalistic backgrounds of that
Mm-hmm.
that appear in some of these. So, you've got Luke with these leaves that are falling, and then you've got these beautiful blossoms around Ahsoka, and they're just I would love to have, especially the Ahsoka one, I would love to have as a poster because of
Yeah.
course I'm very partial to Ahsoka, but the Luke Skywalker one is super cool too. They're all super cool, but
Oh
those
yeah.
are the two
Yeah.
that really caught my eye.
Well, typically the badge art ends up on T-shirts at Star
Mhm.
Wars Celebration, and any of these would be awesome to have. And there's
Mhm.
like 20 more to come that we haven't seen yet. I'm partial to the Mandalorian and Darth Vader on
Mhm.
those. Darth Vader looks like an all black armored samurai with a red katana there.
Mhm.
And then uh, the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, is a bit more Ronin looking, I suppose, in
Mhm.
comparison. And he's got again Grogu with him, and then there's a great one of Yoda, kind of meditating out there as well. So yeah, these are all fantastic. Kind of makes me jealous because this last celebration we went to was Anaheim, and not that the badges were bad, but they concentrated on like landscapes and a vehicle.
Right.
And the primary badge for 4-day attendees had the Razor Crest on it, but it was kind of up in the corner and you didn't really notice it. And the way the badges were laminated, a lot of the scenery was just kind of blurred,
Mhm.
but these would pop in comparison.
Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. And I appreciated the way on StarWars.com as well that they focused in on a specific part of the art
Hmm.
so that you could really see the detail, but yet you still get that it reminds me of something that you would see on those silks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I just think that this would be amazing as tapestries or, the like as well for anyone that really would like this aesthetic in their home. So, yeah, I'm so excited to see the rest of these badges because these are just breathtaking.
I'm wondering which ones are still to come. If I had to
Yeah.
guess, we'll probably get a Boba Fett, Kylo Ren.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if there was the likes of an Obi-Wan. That would be a good one.
Mhm.
Who else do you think?
I'm thinking droids, you know,
Oh yeah,
you gotta pull
yeah,
the droids into that for sure, like 3PO and R2.
yeah. A stormtrooper, perhaps.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so many possibilities. Some Rebels characters like Kanan and Ezra would be good.
Yeah, they would be great. I'd even love to
Mhm.
see a interpretation of Leia as well, maybe in a
Oh yeah,
kimono,
I figured.
you
I figured
know?
we're gonna get a Rey or a Leia. Wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if there was a Padme, but
Mhm.
there's a limited number of them. There's so many great characters that would work for that.
For sure.
Okay, well then the last story we've got for tonight has to do with Rancho Obi-Wan, and they just had their big fundraising event. Now, typically in the past, that's been the gala, and they haven't had a whole lot of those lately, in part due to COVID, the pandemic, and then some other health issues that have prevented them from organizing things. But instead of having a gala this year, they had their fundraising event at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle. And they brought some things there, and they had a number of guests. But there was a huge announcement made that 4 of the largest collections of Star Wars memorabilia in the world are going to be merging in a new museum that at the moment is called the the Star Wars Saga Museum. And so these will include the collections of Rancho Obi-Wan, which is of course Steve Sansweet, Boba Cabana, the Sissonian, and the Imperial Archives. Combined, they'll have over 1.5 million objects. They do not have a location yet for this museum. They're going to be figuring that out over the next couple of years. But the proposed museum is going to be a 200,000 square foot space. It'll include a general store. It'll have event facilities, a cafe restaurant, a research center, rotating exhibits, a 300-seat theater, some permanent exhibits, an educational academy, indoor community spaces, meeting and conference rooms, and outdoor and rooftop gathering spaces. Like I said, no definitive space has been picked yet, but there's a lot of indication that I think they prefer San Francisco, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And in the interim, over the next couple of years, to promote this before they get underway with their capital campaigns and fundraising and the like for it, they're going to be creating pop-up exhibits in major American cities around the country. So huge news. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, it's absolutely delightful. And I mean, think about this. This is just a collection that Steve started, and it just grew and grew and grew. And it was just for his love of Star Wars that he started sharing this out and taking it to different types of things like celebrations and whatnot, and then getting support from fans, and then eventually being in the Guinness Book of World Records. And then now it's just taken on a life of its own, literally. And I'm super excited for Rancho Obi-Wan and everyone that's involved, because I'll tell you what, they as big as they are and as big as they're getting, they're still personal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still am part of the Rancho Obi-Wan support, like the fan club. And so every year I get the little package from
Mm-hmm.
Rancho Obi-Wan. And this year, when I got a confirmation, my old address, which I haven't even lived there in over 10 years, was on the confirmation. And so I had emailed back, and then Annie, who is actually part of the Rancho Obi-Wan crew, was, very conscientious about making sure that my address was just right. So, I mean, just the fact that they make such personal connections, but yet they're going to be so widespread, is also just a testament to, even as big as they're going to get, they're still going to have a place for every individual Star Wars fan. And I just
Yeah.
think that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons for this is that all these collectors are getting up there in age, and they're
Sure.
conscious that they need to do something with their collection to preserve it once they're gone. And not to be morbid, but we all have a limited amount of time, right?
Right.
And I've been to Rancho Obi-Wan. The only time I went was for the gala back in 2015, and had a great time. It was fantastic, but it's not particularly easy to get to.
Hmm.
Petaluma is outside of San Francisco. To the area, it's an old chicken farm that they've set this thing up on.
Right.
We had to shuttle in there because there wasn't enough parking around. And it's appealing that they might, they'd be setting this up in a 200,000 square foot museum, because it sounds like, they'd be, and they're combining 4 huge collections. So you're going to get opportunity to see more things. It'll be more likely that you'll be easier to get to. I mean, we would still have to travel to get there,
Oh,
because I
yeah.
can't imagine it's going to be in Ohio or Texas for that matter.
Hmm.
Uh, but you never know. We can keep our fingers crossed. And then again, in a museum setting, Rancho Obi-Wan is such a cool place, but it's overflowing with stuff. And after the scandal from a couple of years ago, where someone stole a number of things from the exhibit, my
Right.
understanding is now that when you go through there, there's a number of volunteers keeping an eye on you. But in a museum setting, you could spread this stuff out probably better and rope it off and keep a lot more behind glass, and not have to worry about, not have as many safety concerns, or anti-theft concerns, I should say,
Hmm.
about that. And that would be cool, for them to be able to share more of it without having to be so concerned about those type of things.
Right, for sure. So the four collections, and you have them in our notes. So there's obviously Rancho Obi-Wan, there's Boba
Hmm.
Cabana,
Hmm.
the Smithsonian, and the Imperial Archives. Isn't one of those in Kansas City? I want to say that
You
one of
tell
them
me.
is
Don't know.
well, I know that they're all like all around the US, and I want to say that
Hmm.
one of them's in Kansas City, and that's a place that, obviously you frequent. So I just didn't know if you were familiar with that particular collection or not.
I've only been to Kansas City once, and so I'm not particularly familiar with that.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
if it
that's
was in
fair.
St. Louis, then I would be able to tell you better from my Missouri roots.
Hmm.
But I can't, as excited as I am about this, I can't tell you that I'd make a trip to someplace just for this. It'd probably be part of a larger trip, but it is semi-destination worthy, if you know what I mean, from the sounds of it. And I can't wait to see what they come up with here. I could see if it was in California,
Hmm.
heading that way, and then doing a trip because I guess the Lucasfilm, the George Lucas Museum of Narrative Art is, I think, coming along nicely outside of LA. We're going to be able to check that out, and then maybe catch a quick flight to San Francisco, if assuming that's where it is, and then check this out as well. That'd be a fun road trip to do.
Oh, yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. And I was looking at the article on the Rancho Obi-Wan site itself, and one of the things that's mentioned in here and kind of gets my hopes up when they talk about the pop-up exhibits around the United States is that, it talks about the fact that the legacy of Star Wars is coming full circle to help teach science, technology, robotics, engineering, art, and mathematics. So that's STEAM, which
Mm-hmm.
is what I teach. And there's a place right here in Columbus, Ohio, known as COSI. And, that is all about all of these things. So it'd be really cool to, that's my wish. I'm putting it out there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
manifesting it that maybe maybe that would be the case. And then there's also, a NASA uh, area here in Ohio as well. So, maybe it would be related or correlated to different places like that.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming if it comes to Dallas, it'll be at the Perot Museum, which is kind of a science and technology type of museum, but they've got a lot of event space where they could set up a pop-up display. So that'd be my guess. A lot of
Mhm.
similar things have shown up there as well, and there's a few other places it could go as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, but we'll be following this story. I can't wait to find out what they do. So,
For sure.
all right. Well, there you have it. That is a look at this week's Star Wars news. Thank you for joining us here on Podcast Stardust for it. If you've enjoyed it, then hey, make sure you do all the like, rate, subscribe type things on your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review if you've got a minute or two. We like getting those. And then head over to retrozap.com, which is the home of Podcast Stardust and the Podcast Stardust, the RetroZap Podcast Network, which includes other shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, which has a new show out covering the DC reboot that's going on, Animaniacast, Brews and Blasters, Dorklair, Doomcast, Enjoy Stuff, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, Superhero Suite, and Warp Trails. So go check all of those out. All right. Well, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are one more time, and our the other places you can find us around the internet.
Sure thing. If you'd like to say hello that to us, you can do so on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Podcast Stardust. And we also have some Pinterest boards over on the Pinterest app and website that you can check out for all kinds of fun Star Wars ideas. And then we do have two different YouTube outlets. So the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So we would really appreciate it if you'd head to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out. And those do actually support reviews and they also support some interaction. So if you'd like to leave us some comments and or ask us some questions about things or give us some suggestions, we would love to hear it. And if you want to connect with us in real time, you can find us over on our Discord room, which is part of the RetroZap Discord server. And as Dennis was just running down, all of the RetroZap shows have their own rooms as well. So you can check all of those out. And the link to that will be in our show notes. Also, in our show notes is the link to our TeePublic store, and you can find all kinds of apparel and home goods and even tote bags, baby onesies, and just tons of fun things over there. And we have 7 different show logo designs to pick from. So if you are in need of a closet refresh or, just want to treat yourself to something fun, then head on over to that link in our show notes. And if you do happen to get something, make sure you snap a picture of it and tag us. And we would certainly appreciate that. And every purchase does help to support the show.
All right. Before we say goodbye, you want to remind everybody what you got going on with cosplay?
All right. So you can always check out my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And right now I'm gearing up for another appearance this weekend in New Philadelphia. And it's an event called Art on the Alley. It's one of my favorite ones to do. And it's to support local artists and the like in the area of New Philadelphia and Tuscaloosa, Ohio. And it's just a ton of fun. So if anyone's in the area and wants to check that out, you can do so on Sunday, October 14th from 11 to 4. And you can also check out all of the aftermath in my Instagram feed as well. And yeah, just keep on keeping on for all the updates on Ahsoka, Hera, Fourth Sister, as well as my original concept Mandalorian and many more.
Okay. Upcoming on the show Monday, the Clone Wars rewatch rolls on with a look at episode 9 from season 1, which is Cloak of Darkness. And then on Wednesday, Jay is giving us the latest in Star Wars fashion and lifestyle product finds with a segment we like to call World Between Worlds. All right. Thanks for listening to episode 793 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be